In this episode of Founders Insights, I want to give a recap of what I'm doing today in a hotel in Brooklyn. I'm here with my partner, Kent Petrakovsky, and we're going off-site as we do every quarter to do a little bit of brainstorming and recap of the previous quarter, as well as, of course, goals for the future quarter and beyond. I think it's really healthy that we do this, and specifically, like we call it off-site, that we get off-site. If we did this in the office, there would be people bothering us, and there would be the constant distractions of daily work. But the point of getting off-site is to kind of take ourselves out of being in the business and think about working on the business, which I know is a common cliche, but it's really true. You do need to often, as a business owner, take a step back and really think about the direction that you're heading in and consciously think about your budget, your goals, your plans, rather than just chasing down the next task or responding to the next email. So some of the things that we covered in today's offsite were talking about hiring. I think this is just a bigger and bigger part of our job as we grow the business, because we can't clone ourselves and we can't expect ourselves to do everything, right? That would be silly, and that's really not the goal. We have an amazing team and we need to put in a ton of effort to continue to grow the team and make sure that it continues to be amazing. And I think hiring is really an underrated skill, and I'm not saying that we're great at it, but we're definitely working on it and putting in the effort, and I think that's super important. So hiring across the board is really important. One thing that's an interesting realization, it's kind of like a duh, is acquisitions doesn't necessarily have to grow that linearly. With the same team, you could do $50 million per year in acquisition volume, and probably with the same team or similar to that size, you could do $500 million per year in acquisition volume. So acquisitions don't quite scale linearly. I would say they don't really scale linearly at all, especially if you don't make your life harder. If you want to jump around in terms of asset class, geography, and be all over the place, then you might need more people specializing in different places or things. But if you really stick to your knitting like we've chosen to do, it actually makes your life easier in the long term because you're simplifying. Similarly, investor relations and raising capital also doesn't scale linearly as much, because when you're talking about raising $10 million per year or $100 million per year or $200 million per year, it doesn't, the workload doesn't change that much. There's more perhaps investor services work, there's more clerical work, administrative type stuff. Yes, you need to have help for that, and that needs to scale with obviously more investors, there's more work, but obviously everyone gets the idea that you can have someone write you a $50,000 check, or you could have someone write you a $50 million check, right? And that's not linear scaling. So one of our goals is to identify ways that we can stay lean. Well, we can stay lean on the acquisition side by staying focused, like I mentioned, and we can stay lean on the investor relations side. Like I mentioned, we can stick to our investors and hopefully provide a good experience to our investors so that our investors want to double down and invest more with us, and that way we can grow together while staying lean. Staying lean is definitely one of our, I'd say, our core theses. That's something on a long-term basis we really want to stick to. That's our dream vision for the company. But there are some core key areas where staying lean is not necessarily the smartest thing, and that would be on the operations side. Unfortunately, when it comes to property management, asset management, and accounting, it's very difficult to stay lean. You kind of have to throw manpower at the problem. And one of those reasons for that is because the portfolio, as it grows, it just adds more work, right? Every time you buy a deal, that's an acquisition, and you're just throwing that into your acquisition total. But you're not, that work doesn't necessarily compound. But when you go from a $100 million portfolio to a $200 million portfolio, right, you actually double the amount of work that you have to do. It wasn't like a one-time thing, one and done, and now you're done. When you buy a deal, it stays with you, right? You're buying a new business, a new project. So we've seen a lot of growth in our company over the last few years, and we've tried to stay lean, and we've been successful at staying lean, and we're proud of that. But we also recognize that we do need to invest into our portfolio. We need to invest into our team, and we need to grow. So that's something that that we know, and we're not shy about it. We want to hire in anticipation of the growth as well, not just get super behind on things, get super overwhelmed and say, oh my gosh, I need help. That's not a recipe for success. So something that we're focusing a bunch on is hiring, and that's specifically more so on the asset management side, on the accounting side, and on the property management side of things as well with our Radiance Living team down in Houston. As many of you know, we're vertically integrated, so we have to think about the org chart and hiring from a construction management standpoint and from a property management standpoint, and how those teams kind of mesh with the asset management team up in New York. So we need to make sure all those people work well together, that they talk well together, and that we're not hiring redundancies. Because if you have a regional manager or a regional vice president, boots on the ground, how do they interact with the asset manager or perhaps a director of asset management in New York? So those are things that there may be more than one right answer, but I think the important thing is that we are smart with our decision making and we pick a direction and we go full speed. That's important. So many of you know that at Lone Star Capital we're big on affordable housing, and we've done various affordable housing structures and programs, partnerships, and a couple deals that we're working on this year are actually, like I said, LIHTC or low-income housing tax credits, which I would argue is the most complex form of affordable housing. And there's a lot of work that goes involved because you're not only dealing with the compliance issues of affordable housing, but you're also doing a big renovation, or we're doing a big renovation on the projects that we're working on. And there's a lot of red tape that is associated with the compliance as well as the lender side, where you have to do draw requests and make sure everything's approved properly. So we're actually looking, again, smartly, I think we're looking at who, not how, and we're looking to bring the right people onto the team. So we are also going to be this year looking for some sort of LIHTC project manager for the individual deals that we're pursuing LIHTC for. So I think that's a really smart thing to do, because otherwise it would be penny wise, pound foolish, trying to do everything ourselves and trying to do things that we haven't done before. While it is true that various people on our team have LIHTC experience and have certain HUD or compliance or CapEx experience, it's really important to have one person who can oversee all those facets and make sure that they come together when you're talking about getting a big project done on time and on budget. And there's a lot at stake, because you're actually talking about having a tax credit investor come in and partner with us, and they're relying on us being able to hit the deadlines and hit everything perfectly so that their tax credits don't get recaptured. Obviously that's never going to happen. We're going to make sure it all works out, but it's another really important piece of the business that I'm having a lot of fun working on, because it's a new puzzle and project for us. So hopefully you enjoyed this recap on Offsite. Like I said, we go off-site every single quarter to take a step back, look at the wins, look at the challenges, and look at the big picture.